Mike Aramon. I'm chairman of the group, although I've been disappeared the last 2 months. Nice to be back. There's some cookies in the back, thanks to our speakers. Welsh tea cookies?
Tea cakes.
Tea cakes. Make yourself at home and have some. We have our normal attendance list on the right, and we'd like to get you to sign up if you're new, and there are some new people here, and we appreciate you being here. How many are new tonight? How many have never been to one of our meetings before? Any? Okay. You know that we meet the second Tuesday, usually the second Tuesday of every month, and next month we will be having a very interesting speaker, Richard Watkins. The Watkins family, one of his ancestors, designed Morrowfield, the Morrowfield Apartments. And we've been trying to have a talk on Morrowfield. This group had one about 3 or 4 years ago, but the lady who did it moved out of town, and we tried, and thanks to Maren Cook, we finally got a speaker in December. And there's a Welsh connection from tonight into Morrowfield that we're excited about, and you'll hear some more about. A few things about forthcoming events, etc. I do not have our January speaker yet, but what I'm hopeful of is that we will have the director of the FIPS speaking. He's spoken to us 3 years ago. He was a marvelous speaker, and the FIPS is opening up their new tropical conservatory in December. And I thought it'd be great to have him come back and give part of the same talk and partly different. And he will be here in January or March, and we're trying to do in January. In February, a group that is very much one of the institutions of Squirrel Hill that's never been able to speak to us before because their meetings are the same night as the Squirrel Hill Urban Coalition. And they're going to come in and talk about how that group started and everything. That will be on a Wednesday night to accommodate. They have their board meetings on Tuesday, so that'll be Wednesday the 15th of February. We're working on a bunch of other speakers, etc. You know that we put up the Squirrel Hill book. We've actually just about run out, although they sell it at the bookstore. It's done extraordinarily well for Arcadia, and in fact, we get nice royalties. The video camera was one of the things that we were able to do because of that. I was at a conference in Pittsburgh. It was this preservation conference a couple of weeks ago, and for the first time, I met the editor of this book that we had been working with on the phone for months and months. Suddenly there she was. She's asked us to do a second book. We said tentatively no, because the people that worked on it aren't sure what to do next. But if there's anyone in this group that wants to change that decision and come and chat about working with them, they're neat people to work with, and they would love, we did so well for them that they would love to do another one. A little story comes out of the book. In one of the pages in the book, we had a mansion, picture of a mansion called Lyndhurst up on Beechwood, which was torn down in 1942. I got a call about a month ago, and only now able to do something about it, from some people in Wexford. People in Wexford have a house, a more recent house, 45. They're convinced that they're about ready to sell it, and they want to do a historic blurb, and they're convinced, and they've heard, that the ceiling in that house, built in 45, was left over from this house, which was torn down in 42. And was put up, and they're trying to track down information, and we're going to be able to give them a little blurb from here in terms of what the connection. And the lady who talked to me said that there's an additional connection. There's a famous hotel in Memphis called the Peabody and its Ducks, if any of you know that. And she said she looked at the ceiling in that hotel a few years ago. It looks exactly like the ceiling that they have in their house, which seems to have come from Squirrel Hill. So the same architect. That's what's fun about working with history. Our speaker tonight is Elizabeth Jeffries. She's the chair, head of, member of Gadfly at Large in the St. David's Society, which is a Welsh society in town. We have had a couple times in the history of this group what I'll call ethnic evenings. We had the Russo-Carpathians come one night 3 or 4 years ago, and we had a movie on Italians from a certain community in conjunction with Poli's before it departed us early. So tonight we're going to have a talk on the Welsh connection from Elizabeth Jeffries, and I thank her again for the tea cakes in the back, which are yours to eat. I've not asked Elizabeth to exclusively confine her talk to either Squirrel Hill or Pennsylvania, but to give you a broad sweep of the Welsh in America, gradually coming down towards this neighborhood, and then ending up next time with the specifics of the Morrow Field in our next lecture. Elizabeth?
Dispense with the silly hat. Last time I did this, I left the hat on. It was just very distracting. So, Croeso, welcome. The sign outside says lecture, and I hope that doesn't intimidate people. I'm not getting. Think of it not as a lecture, but as an adventure. Who was here at the last meeting with the historian from Homewood Cemetery? Okay, so you heard that bit. And I have to say, don't confer to her, thank you very much, because she gave me a beautiful segue into my presentation tonight. Where she left off was the recent removal of the sycamore trees from around the perimeter. And that's where she stopped. Well, this is where I'm going to start. Homewood Cemetery. The superintendent of Homewood Cemetery was William Allen. He planted those trees, and he was the superintendent of Homewood Cemetery from 1907 to 1935. He had previously worked in the famous Kew Gardens in London. So that is our first Welsh connection, specifically to Squirrel Hill. Now, it's not my intention to give you a biography of William Allen. What I'm going to do is take you to where he came from, Wales. I'm going to not give you an academic lecture and lose you among the grass stems of minutiae. I'm going to take you on a ramble, give you some broad views from hilltops on various topics. We will ramble a bit. Then I'm going to bring you back across the Atlantic, into Pennsylvania, bring you across the state, and land you back safely in Squirrel Hill. So, we think of the little principality of Wales. We know it by that name. But it's not the Welsh name for Wales. There are 3 names for Wales. Things happen in Wales in threes. Cymru, C-Y-M-R-U, is the Welsh name for Wales. It means companions or fellow countrymen. The name Wales was given to it. Well, let's back up just a little bit. The next name for Wales, sequentially, came from the Romans, Cambria. Cymru, Cambria. Now the name Cambria will be familiar to you as the name of a neighboring county here in Pennsylvania. After that, yet another invasion, the Anglo-Saxons, who came over at the invitation of one Vortigern, who was battling other Celtic Britons for the kingship of this island of Britain. And they found these strange people, and Wales is actually what became of their word for strangers. So Wales is the Anglo-Saxon name stuck, and that's what we know of it today. So 3 names for Wales. Oh, gosh. Well, the Romans came in.
Could I ask just one question? The Celts being the people, did they initially come from the mainland of Europe as
Yes.
Gauls? Well, the Gauls are eventually Celts.
Oh, gosh. That's a little deeper
Too far.
than I
Okay.
really feel that I can speak with any authority on. We know the Celts sort of came out of sort of the Germanic regions in more than one wave across Europe.
So more northerly rather than...
Yeah, I'm not sure how the Gauls fit quite into that. But I have a book, we may be able to look it up for you a little bit later. So, let's talk about travel in Wales. First great travel book. People have been going to Wales for quite a while. In the late 12th century, a fellow named Gerald came through Wales with his friend, the Archbishop from England. They were preaching a crusade. And he wrote a bestseller. He made, I think, all of maybe half a dozen copies. You're our book expert. And he talked about the people, the local customs, local miracles and prodigies. And he was really funny in a way. In one section of the book, he devotes a whole section on how the English could really conquer Wales. So, being a Welshman, you kind of wonder where his loyalties were, but his whole thing was jockeying to be Archbishop of all of Wales and get separate from the Church of England. Now, that didn't happen, actually, until 1920. And in an odd irony, all these years later, the current Archbishop of Canterbury in England is a Welshman. So, somehow there's a little interesting little twist of fate there. I've been to Wales 4 times. It's beautiful. A great deal of it is still undeveloped. There's one train ride that goes up diagonally through the country that is just gorgeous, just layer after layer of hills. There are more castles in Wales per square mile than any other place in Europe, if you want to think of Britain as part of Europe. These are not Welsh castles. These are Norman English castles that were built after the Norman invasion. And let's see, 1276. Edward I started building castles to subdue the Welsh people. And they are absolutely imposing structures. Huge masses of stone, which was not part of the native Welsh architecture. Caerphilly Castle, just north of the capital Cardiff, is the 2nd largest castle in Britain after Windsor. And it has a leaning tower. It has a ghost. It's great. It's half an hour train ride up from Cardiff. You walk down the high street, go to the castle, spend a wonderful afternoon. Other castles, Conwy up on the north coast, rises up out of the bay. It's just stunning. Even though it's physically smaller than Caerphilly, to me it seemed much more imposing. Up in Anglesey, Beaumaris Castle, also in the north, Harlech, Churt Castle, Powys Castle, and if you go to the garden centers in the spring, and if you look about, you may see a little ornamental have developed a little garden plant. It's very aromatic. It's nice smelly little leaves. So if you happen to be in Britain, please take a day or two and visit Wales. Cardiff is only a 2-hour train ride from London. Very walkable. You cannot get lost in Cardiff. Every corner there's a little signpost that tells you this way to the castle, this way to the train station, this way to the whatever. So if you know where you want to go in relation to that, you can't get lost. You can always find your way in Cardiff. Who's Welsh? I talked about the Celtic Britons and how they were pushed westward by the invading Anglo-Saxons, later the Normans. So the Welsh are Celts. I have to tell a story. My first trip to Wales, I was introducing myself to people that I met, and told them my last name was Jeffries. And I got one of two reactions. Either they told me how there was a Jeffries connected to their family somehow. The second reaction was, ooh, the hanging judge. So, back in the, I think, 17th century, along the borders, there was apparently the Welsh counterpart of Judge Roy Bean, who used to hang people right and left. So the next time I'm there, I'm going to find my way to Abergavenny and find the pub that is in the building from which he used to hang people and maybe have a drink there. One of my favorite subjects is the food and the folklore. Can anybody tell me what they think of when they think of Welsh food?
Leeks.
Leeks.
Tea cakes.
Tea cake, well, I cheated. You just
Cheese.
cheese, yeah. We think of the
Somebody has said Welsh rarebit.
Welsh rarebit. That's the first thing most people think of. But I will tell you, Welsh food is broader in scope than just melted cheese on toast. My favorite thing is the roast lamb. Is absolutely yummy. What you do is, you poke holes in it, and you stick rosemary in the holes, and then you pour honey over it, and then you bake it, and it's just wonderful. I heard about that from a lady I met at the Swansea market. Other things, the Welsh are great beer drinkers, and just this year available is a new, for those who indulge in such things, a single malt whiskey is being made in Wales for the first time in over 100 years. It's called Penderyn. I haven't had a chance to find it yet. It's not in my local store. Some of the stores have it. They can order it. I will warn you, it is not cheap. It goes for about $70 a bottle. I haven't been able to bring myself, so maybe if I do some entertaining, I will do that. One thing I do want to touch on is language. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Welsh is a beautiful language to listen to. I think of it as linguistic yoga. And some of you might be familiar with the most famous word in Welsh. Welsh is known to be rather long. And this is the most famous place name. It just, as you can see, it just goes on forever.
Say it.
Well, I'm not going to try, as I said, linguistic yoga, but my friend Esther can do this. Would you please be so kind as to help me out here?
The way my mother taught me it was Clan Fair Pushkin Yoga Walking Grubble Hunches in the Yoga Gaga.
And what that means, so right, okay, what that means is the Church of Mary in the hollow of the White white hazel near the rapid whirlpool of the church of Tysilio of the Red Cave. So some clever Welshman decided that this would attract tourists to his little town up in Anglesey, and it works. They cannot keep the sign outside of the town. It gets stolen regularly. But you can buy them, I think, in the gift shop there. So.
They also sell spoons with the name all the way down the handle.
And Welsh children learn this the way we learn the Gettysburg Address. It's just quite astounding to hear the little tiny children his age just rattling this off. But I can guarantee you that everybody in this room knows one word of Welsh. Go figure. How? Pen means head. Gwyn means white. White head. What can we say? Look in a big dictionary that gives word etymologies, you'll find it. It comes from the Welsh. So, having completed a few broad, I'm going to get back to the folklore. Just back up a little bit. We just celebrated Halloween with trick-or-treating. And trick-or-treating comes from an old Welsh custom of carrying something disgusting door to door so people will give you something to make you go away. The Welsh have one custom, it's usually around Christmas time, and that's the Mawr Loy. And this is, believe it or not, the skull of a horse, carried on a pole, with carrier kind of wrapped in a sheet, and it goes door to door, and there's a whole custom of a song that goes back and forth between the fellows carrying this skull and the people inside, and the horse says, oh, please let me in, I'm so cold, please feed me, be nice to me, and oh, no, we can't let you in, you're going to cause trouble, and no, oh, please, my feet are free. So it goes back and forth. Finally, they let the beast in. And of course, the jaw is on a wire, and it snaps up and down, and it tries to bite all the ladies, and it causes all manner of mischief, and finally it goes on to the next house. Also, right after Christmas, there is, it's not exclusively Welsh, but it's a very peculiar custom among, used to be the young men of the village, where St. Stephen's Day, the day after Christmas, go out into the woods and kill a wren and dress up its body and lay it in a very elaborate box and carry it about. And different regions have a special song. Once again, they go door to door, and it has to do with the king. And this is a carryover from, apparently, a pre-Christian custom about the winter king and the summer king and the battle of the seasons. Of course, this is around the solstice time, and the days start to become longer. So there's this whole interesting wren thing going on. Why a wren? I don't know. But there it is. One of the most famous customs is the love spoon. It's the quintessential Welsh souvenir. You go into the shops all over the place, and you see these wonderfully, elaborately carved wooden spoons. This used to be the poor man's engagement ring. When a young man was smitten with a young lady, he would spend time carving this spoon. And the different designs on it would have different meanings. For example, if it were carved as the links of a chain, each link might symbolize a hoped-for child, and he would be indicating her, how many kids he would hope to have. It's nice that she gets fair warning. There might be bells, there might be anchors, flowers, you name it, it can show up in the handle of the spoon. And if she accepted the spoon, it was sort of understood that they were at least engaged to be engaged. Well, modern Welsh young ladies, there are jewelry stores in Wales, plenty of them, and modern Welsh young ladies can reasonably expect to get a diamond, as in the rest of the world these days. What else did I want to get into? The love spoon also. They continue to be popular as gifts to celebrate special occasions, anniversaries, baptisms, that sort of thing. When Catherine Zeta-Jones married Michael Douglas, all the guests at her wedding got love spoons as a wedding favor. So she's carrying on that custom. One thing that is interesting is an old custom of the Holy Stone. Now, a Holy Stone is a rock, a little rock, with a naturally occurring hole in it. And these started out as protections in the barn to protect the horses from being hag-ridden by witches. Gradually, it became a generalized good luck charm. They got hung from the bedposts to ward off nightmares. They were put under the bed to ease pangs of childbirth. There's a great, huge one in the Museum of Welsh Folklife at St. Faggus in Cardiff. And I've been lucky enough to find several in the Taff River and the Wye River. So I have holy stones on my own door.
Those rivers, are they here in America?
No, in Wales.
Okay.
The Taff River runs through Cardiff. The Wye River runs up in mid Wales. But I have found them in a branch of the Shenandoah River in Virginia. And I left that one down with my uncle, who has a hunting lodge down there at the mountain. It just seemed to want to belong there in its home place. I have found one, believe it or not, among landscaping rocks. You know, these are often dredged up from rivers. And I happened to be in Beckley, West Virginia one weekend. I was walking through a parking lot and they had these raised islands in the parking lot with a tree growing out of it, you know, this pathetic attempt at landscaping. And I happened to look down, and here among the landscaping rock is a holy stone. So you don't know. So look at landscaping rocks. If you happen to be up on Lake Erie, you never know where they're going to show up. So if you find one, well, yeah. It's still living in my car, actually. So let's talk about the Welsh getting back into this area. Pennsylvania. What is your understanding of what Pennsylvania means?
The woods of Penn, the woods of Penn, or Penn's Woods.
Penn's Woods? Everybody agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will tell you that William Penn would not agree with you. Surprise, surprise. I happened across a little booklet of excerpts from his writings. And under the heading of the naming of Pennsylvania, I came across this and I thought, wow, who knew? And from a letter written by William Penn, he says, I chose New Wales, being as this a pretty hilly country, but Penn being Welsh for a head, they called this Pennsylvania, which is the high or head woodlands. For I proposed when the secretary, a Welshman, refused to have it called New Wales, Sylvania, and they added Penn to it, though I much opposed it. He even tried to bribe the secretary, it didn't work, so. Now you know we were almost Pittsburgh, New Wales. How's that? Well, Welsh Quakers came with William Penn to settle. William Penn granted a 40,000 acre tract of land just north of Philadelphia. They had their own form of government based on a medieval code of law set up in the 10th century. A good third at one time of settlers in Pennsylvania were Welsh. So this was as close to a Welsh colony as any place else in the colonies. A lot of Welsh place names around Philadelphia. You might be familiar with the name Bryn Mawr, means big hill. Well, with such a big Welsh presence around Philadelphia, that really became the gateway for later immigrants into America from Wales. There was already a Welsh community where they could make a transition, get themselves together, and go even farther westward, as many settlers did. This happened westward over the mountains and more into our area in the 1800s. Saw industrial skilled workers, iron puddlers, coal miners. Remember Cambria County, big coal country. Slate quarrymen, tin platers. 1796, Cambria County had a large settlement of Welsh. Let's see, coal. The parallels between the Welsh coal mines and the industries in our part of the country is absolutely astounding to me. Coal, slate, and wool were the three big industries in Wales. The Rhondda Valley was to coal in Wales as the Mon Valley was to steel here in Pittsburgh. Lots of little towns growing up around in the economy built on a single industry. What happens when that industry goes down? Well, the bottom dropped out of the coal mining industry in Wales. Same situation. Town, young people moving out, town struggling to survive. It's quite astounding. So many of those coal miners went to England, many came to the United States. In 1869, there was a breaker fire in a coal mine near Wilkes-Barre. Of the 109 miners killed in that accident, 2/3 of them were Welsh. With the growth of iron, steel, and later tin plate, Welsh communities sprang up in western Pennsylvania, around Johnstown, Sharon, Newcastle, and of course here in Pittsburgh. In 1893, a Welsh choir from Scranton outsang the Mormon Tabernacle Choir at the Chicago World's Fair. The Welsh male choirs are one of the biggest things going. They're very famous for their singing. And given a Welsh affinity for what were at the time fringe religions, the Welsh went very much into the nonconformist movement in the 17th century. I read an article not long ago where Donny Osmond of the Osmond family, singing family, was recently in Wales researching genealogy. Now, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is the most famous in the United States. So Welsh choirs, tabernacle choirs, Mormons, genealogy, so there's got to be a Welsh connection there too, so I just kind of throw that out. I'm sure there's some interesting material there. Would like to talk about who else might be Welsh, whose names you know. Richard Burton, most of you are familiar with him. Tom Jones. I would update that list. Catherine Zeta-Jones. Opera fans would know the name of Bryn Terfel, operatic baritone, very much in demand. Movie fans, John Rhys Davies, most recently was Gimli the Dwarf in the Lord of the Rings movies, also known as Indiana Jones's sidekick. Heavy fellow, dark beard. Singers, Charlotte Church. Another actor, Yawen Griffith. Did anybody see the HBO series on Horatio Hornblower? Nobody watched that? That was Yawen. Big melty brown eyes.
Oh, but there was a wonderful one here in Squirrel Hill where you played an itinerant Jewish peddler he wanted
Yes.
to die for. Do you remember that? A tremendously
Yes.
romantic story where he dies
Yes.
of exposure.
Old-fashioned, rip your heart
Rip
out, tragic romance.
Darkly handsome.
Solomon and Gaynor.
That was
that
wonderful.
film, yes.
And of course, being, and when he's in love with this Welsh girl, this Semitic peddler, is interviewed by her stern family, but of course passes the test with flying colours, not that they know he's Jewish, but of course he knows his Old Testament, which is what they want. So the fundamentalist
That
Welsh.
was an interesting movie. The Welsh actor had to learn Yiddish. The English actress had to learn Welsh. In the story, the only language they had in common was English. It was up for an Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film of its year. Ladies, if you happen to go and get this DVD, I know Carnegie Library has it. Have Kleenex on hand. It's, as I said, rip your heart out. Oh my gosh. Those of you who like rum, another famous Welshman, read the label, Captain Morgan. Read the label. So they're kind of everywhere. Howard Stringer, the current head of Sony, is a Welshman. So the Welsh do pretty well, especially when they're outside of Wales. Not sure why that is. Not sure I want to go into that. Okay, let's get closer into Pittsburgh. Owen Picton Griffiths was the first chief of police in Duquesne. He helped build the first Welsh Baptist church there around 1888. At one time, there were at least 9 churches with Welsh-speaking congregations here in Pittsburgh. I know one of them was in Homestead. There is one church in the area named for a Welsh saint, St. Winifred, and that church was founded in the mid-1960s, and that's in Mount Lebanon. We talked about William Allen. The Welsh are still here in many different occupations, continue to be a part of the region. Many are the descendants of long ago Welsh immigrants, some are more recent arrivals. We do have native Welsh in the St. David's Society organization. Their accents are wonderful. I could just sit and listen to some of them all day. But I promised I would drop you back safely in Squirrel Hill. And I'm going to continue the favor of a wonderful segue into the next speaker. Thomas Watkins, who you will hear about next month, came from Wales as a boy, grew up in Millvale, major developer of what is now Squirrel Hill, lived until 1925. His grandchildren are still in the area. One has his real estate office down there on Forward Avenue. And you're going to hear about him all next month. So I hope you learned something interesting, that I didn't lose you too much. Please help yourself to more tea cakes. I'll be happy to schmooze around. Yes?
Elizabeth, we know about the Irish coming over because of agricultural issues. Are you saying that virtually all of the immigration from Wales was more out of the industrial era and difficulties, or were there also Welsh farmers that had come over earlier?
Some farmers, early on, the original wave with William Penn were here for religious reasons. They were practitioners of, as I said, the nonconformist religions at the time, which was not, there were laws against them in England. They were seriously persecuted. So they came with William Penn, who had a very open-minded idea that, you know, your relationship with God was your business and it had nothing to do with, you know, the government. So they came because of his openness to that. It was, I think, the later folks came, the English in Wales were very hard on Welsh. Children speaking Welsh in school were beaten for not using English. So, of course, the mines with the Industrial Revolution, there were labor problems. The mine owners were exploiting the workers terribly. There were labor difficulties that makes Homestead look tame in Wales. So many came for the economic opportunity. And it's a small country. Again, the opportunity of America. But as I said, many of them were skilled people, tinsmiths and the miners. That's not a thing you can just go down and do.
The English used to look down on the Welsh. They had a reputation for being thieves.
Taffy was a Welshman.
Yes.
Well, the Welsh had an idea that promises made under duress were not binding.
What about Bryn Mawr? What is the connection?
Bryn Mawr was, oh, let's see, the name of a large house built by a settler around the Philadelphia area. It means big hill.
Okay.
Bryn is hill, Mawr means large. So that's what he named his house. People named their houses, and that later became the women's college.
And was there a continued Welsh connection with the college itself, or?
I believe he willed the land to the college.
Can you tell us anything about the origin of the title Prince of Wales?
The Prince of Wales. Well, there hasn't been a Welsh Prince of Wales since the 12th century, when Llewellyn decided he was not going to be subject to Edward anymore. Basically refused to subject himself to the king. There were battles. He lost his head, and Edward named his son Edward II Prince of Wales, and there hasn't been a Welsh Prince of Wales since. The last thread of hope for that was 15th century Owen Glendower actually did a pretty good job of uniting the areas of Wales. He had himself crowned and was actually functioning fairly well as the ruler of Wales. He set up embassies, he got foreign recognition, but again, the English did not care for that. There was some betrayal among his supposed supporters. There was a big battle. Owen Glendower in 1415, disappeared from the battlefield, hadn't been seen since. Did he live in obscurity? Did he crawl off and die? Was he killed on the battlefield and just wasn't recognized? Nobody knows. I think that would make a great movie.
So, can I just interject? Talking about Prince of Wales, there have actually been 2 Welsh kings of England. Henry V, who was born in Monmouth on the border, and Henry VII, Henry VIII's father,
The Tudor kings
who
came
was
out
Welsh.
of,
And so
yeah.
you could say that from there down, then the monarchy of England is actually Welsh. I'm kind of like to remind them of that.
Yeah, it was Henry VIII executed the Articles of Union and actually annexed Wales as part of sort of England. So, yeah.
Okay, on to another thing. Can you tell us a little about Saint David?
Oh, Saint David is the patron saint of Wales. He came, let's see, Patrick was, where was Patrick? Was 432. David died in 588. So, you know, it's an interesting little secret that the Irish don't like to admit that Patrick was a Welshman.
Yes.
Yeah, Patrick was a Welshman. But apparently Patrick wanted to Christianize the Welsh, but he had some vision or dream that said, no, someone else is going to come from the Welsh. You go over to Ireland. So he did his thing in Ireland. David came later, founded a good many monasteries. And in Wales, there were several miracles attributed to him. One of the famous ones was he was preaching to a great crowd. And in order for all the people to hear him, the ground lifted under his feet, and he ended his sermon on a hilltop. Even though he never moved, the ground rose up before him. Now, his favorite penance was to stand neck deep in an icy river and recite Bible verses. Yeah. So Patrick, having driven snakes out of Ireland, has kind of a better reputation, just gets better press. But St. David's Day is March 1st. David was supposed to have lived on a diet of bread, leeks, and water.
A couple of questions. Today, the language is just being saved
More in the north, although I have heard Welsh spoken in the streets of Cardiff, which is in the south. There are immersion schools throughout the country where the instruction is completely in Welsh. So there are, Welsh is being saved from extinction. They're putting great effort into it. It seems to be working.
And is it close to the Celtic or the Irish? Can you understand each other?
There are some similar words, I think, possibly because of geographic proximity. You know, things do bleed over. They're somewhat related. They are sort of distant cousins. There's a linguistic distinction, P Gaelic and Q, P Celtic and Q Celtic.
There is a large group now of people from Middle East, Africa, India, Pakistan. Is that flowing into Wales as well?
Yes.
And is there, so the children are all being intermingled now, and English is the language.
Everybody in Wales pretty much speaks English, so if you travel there, you're not going to have any problem communicating. As I said, 20% of the Welsh do speak Welsh. So, which is better than Cornish, which is pretty much gone. That's a lost language.
Children still have to learn Welsh in schools up to the age of 16. It's compulsory.
Oh,
And so they're trying to boost it that
It's a
way.
big effort.
And all the signposts in Wales are
Or bilingual.
Welsh and English. And if you're a civil servant, then you have to be competent in Welsh. And so they're really trying to boost it from the bottom up. You know, so if every child learns Welsh, then it'll be
And there is a Welsh channel on BBC, which is all in Welsh.
well, with your accent, are you a student here? Or?
No, I've just moved here. I'm actually from Wales. I'm from Swansea.
Oh my gosh!
So
Have I made terrible mistakes?
I haven't got a very Welsh accent, though. You
Oh.
probably know from the Welsh Society, but so I don't know much Welsh speaking.